Have you ever poured your heart into a message, only to be met with silence? You sit there, watching your screen, refreshing it again and again, hoping for something, anything. But nothing comes. That emptiness? It hits deeper than you ever expected. And you wonder if silence could hurt more than words. What if I told you that silence is often louder than any excuse? When they stop texting, stop calling, stop caring, there's no announcement, no closure, just distance. And in that distance, you slowly realize they may not care anymore. Why are you always the one reaching out? Why does it feel like the weight of the relationship is only on your shoulders? If you're tired of trying so hard for someone who doesn't even notice, then stay. Because this message was made for you. We've all been there. You send a message, maybe a heartfelt one, maybe just a, "Hey, how are you?" And you wait. You stare at the screen. Minutes pass, hours go by, days, even, still no reply. You make excuses for them at first. They must be busy. Maybe they're going through something. Surely they'll get back to me soon. But deep down, something in your chest starts to tighten. Because this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. You start to replay every word you said. Did I sound too eager? Was I too honest? Did I say something wrong? And just like that, you're trapped in a loop, blaming yourself for someone else's silence. But let me tell you the truth. When someone doesn't care anymore, they stop showing up, they stop initiating, they stop investing. And communication, once vibrant and natural, starts to rot in silence. It doesn't happen all at once. No, at first. It's subtle. They reply slower. Their responses get shorter. The calls get less frequent. The excitement you used to hear in their voice fades. And eventually, you're the only one trying. Trying to keep the conversation alive. Trying to stay connected. Trying to prove that you still matter. And they're drifting, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You want to believe it's temporary, that it's just a phase. You tell yourself, they're just overwhelmed. You hang on to every tiny reply like it's a lifeline. You lower your expectations, just to feel something that resembles connection. But here's the problem. When you're the only one reaching out, you're not building a relationship. You're preserving the illusion of one. Real connection doesn't feel like a chase. It doesn't leave you second-guessing your worth. It doesn't leave you in the dark. People who care, truly care, don't leave you wondering. Even when life gets hard, even when they're busy, they find small ways to let you know, you still matter to me. It could be a one-line message, a late-night voice note, a small emoji at the end of the day. But it's there, it's presence, it's effort, it's intentional. But someone who no longer values you, they disappear without saying goodbye. And the hardest part? When you finally start to pull away, when you stop texting first. Stop checking in, stop making excuses, they don't even notice. Or worse, they do notice, but they don't care. And suddenly, the silence that used to hurt turns into clarity. You see, when someone doesn't respond, it's not always because they're busy. It's often because you are no longer a priority. It's because they know you'll always reach out. You'll always forgive. You'll always be there. So why should they try? And let's be honest, it hurts. Because you remember when things were different. You remember the conversations that lasted all night. The messages that made you smile. The times when they showed up. But now, it's just you. Trying, holding on. And every time they ignore you, a piece of you slips further into silence. You begin to doubt yourself. You start asking, what's wrong with me? You wonder if you're too needy, too intense, too emotional. You begin to believe that maybe you're the problem. But I need you to hear me now. You are not the problem. their inability to appreciate your heart, your loyalty, your consistency, that's on them, not you. You deserve to be loved without begging. You deserve to be heard without shouting. You deserve to be seen without shrinking. And most importantly, you deserve someone who meets you halfway, not someone who leaves you wandering in the silence alone. In the next part, we're going deeper. We'll talk about how emotional neglect chips away at your self-worth, and why it's not your job to teach someone how to value you. Because sometimes, the clearest answer is no response at all. After all the hurt that silence brings, you begin to realize real care never leaves you guessing. And where real care exists, there's always presence, spoken, shown, and felt, even in the smallest ways. A short message just to check in. A surprise phone call just to hear your voice. A simple, "I miss you." These aren't grand gestures, but they are powerful signs of genuine care. Someone who truly values you won't let you sit around wondering how they feel. They won't leave you drowning in uncertainty, anxiety, or emotional limbo. We all deserve to have people like that in our lives, people who don't make us question our worth. People who truly see us, who make the effort to stay connected, and who show up when we need them the most. Whether it's a friend, a family member, or a partner, every human being needs to feel significant to someone. But in order to experience that kind of love, you have to first recognize when someone isn't giving it. You have to be brave enough to admit when someone who once claimed to care isn't trying anymore. And that, I promise you, is not your fault. Communication is the foundation of every relationship. Without it, there is no structure, no growth, no trust. It's the lifeline that keeps connection alive. When someone stops texting, stops calling, stops trying, it's not a coincidence. It's not a phase. It's a reflection of where their heart stands. And though it stings at first, one of the most empowering things you can do is stop chasing people who aren't willing to meet you halfway. Take a step back, observe the pattern, protect your energy, because you deserve more than silence. You deserve people who will show up for you, who care enough to communicate, who want to know how you're really doing, and who don't just say they care, but prove it. Don't let their absence convince you that you're not worthy, because the truth is, you are valuable, even when they fail to see it. Their inability to show up is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of theirs. When you care about someone, your words and actions align. You don't just say, "I'll be there." You show up when it matters. But when someone doesn't care, when their presence is no longer genuine, you'll start to hear sweet words that sound like promises. They'll say what you want to hear, but their actions will reveal the truth. This is where the divide begins to show, between those who truly care and those who are simply passing through your life. Think about the last time someone made you a promise. Maybe they said they'd call you later. Maybe they offered to help you with something important. Maybe they said they'd be there when you needed them. But when the time came, they vanished. And you could feel the sting of it, right? But it wasn't just about the broken promise, it was the realization that their words didn't match their actions. Their promises were hollow, their follow-through was non-existent. And in that painful silence, trust begins to erode. The truth is, words are cheap. Anyone can say anything. What matters is what they actually do. When someone doesn't care, their actions scream louder than their empty reassurances. They'll tell you what you want to hear just to keep the peace, to avoid guilt, or to maintain appearances. But when it's time to show up, they're gone. They'll cancel plans at the last minute. They'll disappear when you need support. They'll pretend their promises were never made. And each time they let you down, a small piece of trust fades into nothing. Let me make this clear. People who genuinely care about you are not perfect. No one is. life happens. Things come up. We all mess up sometimes. But there's a big difference between an honest mistake and a consistent pattern of carelessness. When someone values you, they'll try. They'll do their best to follow through. They'll work to keep their word alive through action. But when someone doesn't care, they'll offer excuse after excuse. And when the excuses run out, they'll stop trying altogether. The gap between their words and their behavior will grow wider and wider. And eventually, you'll realize this isn't random. This isn't accidental. It's a choice. And perhaps the most dangerous part? You might start getting used to it. You might begin to normalize the pain, the inconsistency, the empty gestures. You might start settling. But in the next section, we'll talk about how to stop settling for less than you deserve. How to break the cycle of disappointment before it rewires the way you see love. Because you weren't made to live in emotional limbo. After you've endured broken promises long enough, a sobering truth begins to form. Maybe they never planned to follow through in the first place. At first, you might think, maybe they forgot. But after hearing the same excuses over and over again, they begin to lose their weight. Eventually, you realize they never truly intended to show up. They just told you what you wanted to hear. And they did it because they knew it would keep you waiting, hoping, staying. This is emotional manipulation, whether they realize it or not. They don't want to lose you, but they don't want to invest in you either. They want you close enough to remain available, but far enough that they don't have to make an effort. And when you begin to question it, they come with well-practiced justifications. I've just been busy, they say. I'm dealing with a lot right now. But let's be honest, who isn't? Every one of us has struggles. Everyone is busy. But when we truly care about someone, we make time. We don't wait until we're free. We create space in our lives for them. It's not about being available all day, every day. It's about showing up when it matters. It's about prioritizing the people we value. But when someone doesn't care, they will constantly let you down. They'll keep you waiting, wondering if they'll ever follow through. And that waiting, it begins to wear on your soul. You start to question why you even try. You start to feel like you're the one overvaluing the relationship, like you're giving more than they ever intend to return. That's where the pain truly begins. Because you're pouring your time, your effort, your heart into someone who isn't even trying to meet you halfway. But here's the truth. You don't have to keep settling. You don't have to keep waiting for someone who won't come. You don't have to keep believing in words that never become actions. The most important thing you can do is recognize when this is happening, and walk away from it. Stop accepting broken promises as normal. Stop confusing inconsistency with complexity. You are not difficult to love. You are not too much. When someone genuinely cares, their actions will always back up their words. You won't have to decode their intentions or wait for confirmation. You'll know, because they'll show you. So take a moment and reflect on the relationships in your life. Ask yourself, are they showing up for you? Are their actions aligned with their words? If not, stop excusing it. Stop making room in your life for people who won't fight to stay in it. You deserve to be surrounded by those who follow through. Those who prove their care not through declarations, but through consistency. You were never meant to live off crumbs of affection. And let's talk about something deeper now, boundaries. We all have them, whether we've clearly defined them or not. They are the invisible lines we draw to protect our emotional well-being, our time, and our self-respect. Boundaries are how we teach people to treat us. And let me be honest, when someone doesn't care about you, they will test those boundaries over and over again. They'll push past them, cross them, ignore them, until you finally break. And it's not because they don't understand. It's because they don't care enough to respect you. Think back to a time when someone crossed a line with you. Maybe they ignored your need for space when you were hurting. Maybe they pressured you into doing something that made you uncomfortable. Maybe they laughed off something that was deeply personal and meaningful to you. What did you feel when that happened? Disrespected, violated, small. And it wasn't just about the act itself, it was the realization that your feelings, your comfort, and your boundaries meant nothing to them. And here's the danger: if you don't defend your boundaries, that violation becomes a pattern. In the next part, we'll talk about how to reclaim the space that's yours, how to protect your peace, and how to stop bleeding for those who never offered you a bandage. When someone repeatedly disregards your needs and steps over the boundaries you've clearly set, the result isn't just disappointment. It's a crushing sense of invisibility. You begin to feel like your worth has been quietly dismissed. It's a hollowing moment, the realization that someone you once trusted has little regard for the emotional lines you drew in the sand. You shrink. You begin questioning your own feelings. Am I being too sensitive? Am I asking for too much? But let's be absolutely clear, when someone truly cares about you, they don't just recognize your boundaries. They honor them. They understand that your time is precious, your emotions are valid, and your inner peace is not something to be negotiated. On the other hand, when someone doesn't truly care, they won't even bother to ask what you need, how you're feeling, or what matters to you. Instead, they'll put themselves first every single time. Their desires will eclipse your discomfort. Their wants will outweigh your well-being. They'll push you. They'll guilt you. They'll manipulate you until you feel bad for protecting your own space. And every time they cross that invisible line, they're sending a loud message. Your feelings don't matter. My comfort is more important than your peace. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. If you don't speak up, if you don't draw the line, if you don't enforce the boundary, they will keep crossing it. And eventually, it stops being about them and starts becoming about you. Because when we allow people to ignore our limits, we silently grant them permission to disrespect us. And the more we let it slide, the more they assume it's acceptable. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're protection. They're not about shutting people out. They're about preserving what's sacred within us. Our identity, our calm, our self-respect. Setting boundaries isn't always easy. Sometimes we fear rejection. We fear confrontation. We worry that someone won't understand. Or worse, they'll be offended. So, we hesitate. We soften. We let it go, just this once. But the cost of that silence is steep. You begin to vanish in your own life. Your comfort gets sacrificed. Your peace gets disturbed. And your needs, time and time again, get buried under someone else's demands. Let me remind you, setting boundaries is not selfish. It's not rude. It's not dramatic. It is self-respect in action. It's saying, I value myself enough to protect my peace. And anyone who truly cares about you will not only understand that, they'll appreciate it. When you say no, they won't take offense. They'll see it as you honoring your emotional health. They'll respect you more, not less. But for those who don't care, they'll push back. They'll say you're overreacting, that you're being too much, that you're making things difficult. They'll roll their eyes, or sigh, or try to convince you that your boundaries are unreasonable. But if they truly respected you, they wouldn't challenge your need for boundaries in the first place. They would see your peace as something worth protecting, just as you do. They wouldn't try to chip away at your strength with guilt or accusations. And here's what's worse. The more you allow them to cross those lines, the more emboldened they become. It turns into a cycle. They test, you bend, they test again, and suddenly, You're the one constantly accommodating, while your own needs are left unmet. Before you know it, you're giving more than you're receiving. You're reshaping yourself just to keep the peace, while your emotional needs gather dust in the corner. But hear me now, you do not have to live like that. You don't have to make room for those who take up space but never give it back. You are not required to shrink for the sake of someone else's convenience. You are worthy of kindness, of patience, of compassion, and yes, of respect. Real care is proven through action. The people who truly see you, who value you, will never make you feel like your boundaries are too much. They'll respect your space, not because you force them to, but because they want to. They'll understand that loving you means protecting what matters to you, your heart, your time, your boundaries. And once you start holding that line, once you stop apologizing for protecting yourself, you'll see clearly who's truly in your corner, and who was only there to benefit from your silence. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how to enforce those boundaries without guilt, and reclaim the power of your own voice. Once you've learned how to set and guard your boundaries, the next challenge becomes clear, facing those who try to push past them. And when that moment comes, remember, you don't have to back down. Don't surrender just because someone tries to test your limits. You deserve relationships where your boundaries are respected, your feelings are heard, and your peace of mind isn't something you have to fight to maintain every single day. You are worthy of love, respect, and care. And if someone tries to make you feel like you're asking for too much, then maybe they're offering too little. Let me ask you, have you ever found yourself being the only one reaching out? Always initiating conversations, planning meetups, checking in, only to realize that when you need someone, no one's there? You know exactly what that feels like, don't you? That kind of relationship where it feels like you're carrying the entire weight of connection. You're the one maintaining the bridge. You're the glue holding everything together. You make the calls. You send the messages. You extend the invitations. But when it's your turn, when you're the one in need, it suddenly becomes impossible to get a reply. They vanish. They become conveniently unavailable. Unless, of course, they need something. That's when they magically reappear. Needing a favor, wanting your time, craving your attention, asking for your support. But when you turn to them for even the simplest gesture, what do you hear? Silence. And that's not just frustrating. It's hurtful, because slowly, it dawns on you, they only value you when it's useful to them. To them, you're not a person to care for, just a resource to tap into. You start to feel like an afterthought, like a convenient option, not a cherished priority. And eventually, you realize the entire relationship feels one-sided. You're pouring into something that never pours back. Relationships like that don't just tire you, they deplete you. They empty your spirit. They leave you questioning your worth, your kindness, your purpose. Now don't get me wrong. Everyone needs help sometimes. Life gets heavy. We all lean on others. That's normal. But the difference lies in reciprocity. In healthy relationships, there's a give and take. Not a scoreboard, but a rhythm, a natural balance. When you care about someone, you show up, not because it's easy, but because you want to. Not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. People who truly care make the effort. They listen, they show up, they support you through the storms and celebrate with you in the sunshine. They don't just take, they give. But people who don't really care, they reach out only when they need something, when they're going through something, when they feel lost, lonely, or overwhelmed. But when the roles reverse, don't expect that same energy. Don't be surprised when all you get is silence. Because here's the painful truth. They don't value the relationship like you do. They're not checking on you because they miss you. They check in because they have a motive. And when you start to see that clearly, it stings, because you realize you've been the only one truly invested all along. You start asking, why am I even trying? Why am I working so hard for someone who won't even meet me halfway? You give and give and give, but they never pour anything back. It's like trying to fill a bucket that's riddled with holes. No matter how much you pour in, it just keeps leaking, until one day, you're empty, emotionally drained, spiritually tired, and your kindness? It's been taken for granted. But the story doesn't end there. Because once you've given so much, some people don't just take your energy, they turn it into gossip, into leverage, into fuel for their own benefit. In the next section, we'll explore how your vulnerability can become someone else's entertainment, and how to stop that cycle for good. Duo I de la ban tieng and de du kua trang 6 da duk mo rong hon 80%. Ju nguyen y gok va su dung van fong k chuyen shine dong. Dung theo yer kai kua an. After realizing that a one-sided relationship is slowly wearing you down, you begin to ask yourself, am I investing my emotions in the right person? The most painful part isn't that you've given too much. It's realizing that the other person never really cared about what you were giving. And worse, they don't even see it as a problem. They don't recognize their absence when you needed them the most. They're blind to the imbalance. Because to them, you're simply someone they turn to when it's convenient. Have you ever noticed how some people only reach out when they need something? When you happily share your plans, your goals, or your emotions, they listen, nod politely, and then disappear. But the moment they face trouble or want help, they resurface with a familiar friendliness. Sounds familiar? If you're someone who initiates, who shares, who cares, you quickly become the default giver. People get used to your presence, to your check-ins, to your constant support. And when you finally stop, they don't call you tired. They call you distant. They say you've changed. But what about you? You're left questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Am I asking for too much? In truth, all you ever wanted was to be respected, for someone to return even a fraction of the care you freely offered. That's when it hits you. Constantly sharing your life with people who haven't earned that trust is like handing over the keys to your emotions. You become their topic of gossip, of judgment. Worse still, they don't even have to do anything to make you feel small. Their apathy alone is enough to make you question your worth. Some people don't need to slander you outright. Their passive negativity, their silence, their avoidance, that's enough to mess with your head. You begin to second-guess every action, every word, and little by little, you retreat inward, not because you're guilty, but because you're surrounded by people who never truly saw you. Did you know? Some people don't care about helping you. They care about having a story to tell. They ask questions not to support you, but to collect information, to have something juicy to pass around. They pretend to care, but your vulnerability is just their next piece of entertainment. Is there anything worse than hearing your own private words come out of someone else's mouth? What you confided in trust becomes casual conversation in rooms you were never invited into. Small matters balloon into drama, not because they were complex, but because too many people knew. And when you finally grow quiet, they get uncomfortable. They say, "You've changed," but the truth is, you're learning to protect yourself. You're learning to hold sacred the parts of yourself that not everyone deserves to know. When you maintain your privacy, you keep control, you safeguard your peace from judgment, unsolicited advice, and disguised negativity. You no longer offer your story as a public display. You reclaim it for yourself. Remember this, you don't owe anyone your full story. You don't owe them constant updates. The people who truly love you, they will respect your silence. They won't demand access. They will simply be there when you're ready to speak. Because silence, when rooted in self-respect, is not absence, it is protection, and you deserve that protection. When you move in silence, you take away their opportunity to interfere. You strip away the power others think they have over your journey. Because the less they know, the less they can disrupt. That's the truth. Not every thought deserves to be shared. And not every situation needs a second opinion. In a world where everyone's shouting their next move, there's immense power in staying quiet. You start to notice something beautiful: peace. A kind of peace that comes from no longer needing approval. A peace that blossoms when you realize your energy is better spent building your future than explaining your intentions. People love to talk, especially about what they plan to do. They'll shout their goals from the rooftops, thinking that saying it aloud somehow turns dreams into reality. But the applause they chase is hollow when there's no action to back it up. And the truth is, every word you speak can drain energy that should be fueling your progress. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most effective. It's the quiet one, the one who watches, listens, and works, who usually makes the greatest impact. Why? Because they're not distracted by performance. They're too busy executing. There's something deeply admirable about a person who doesn't need to explain themselves. Who doesn't feel the urge to narrate every chapter of their life. They don't post every plan. They don't defend every move. They just move, with purpose, with intention, with direction. You ever notice how some of the most successful people just show up one day, no grand announcement? No preview, no build-up, just results? One moment, no one knew what they were up to. The next, they've built something remarkable. That's not coincidence. That's focus. When you keep your plans private, you eliminate distractions. You avoid the unsolicited doubts, the subtle jabs masked as concern, and the outright negativity. You create space, mental, emotional, and spiritual space, to focus. And in that space, your vision becomes clearer. The moment you start talking too much about what you're going to do, you give others a chance to plant seeds of fear. Some won't believe in you. Not because you aren't capable, but because they can't imagine themselves doing what you're about to do. Their doubt isn't about you, it's a reflection of their own limitations. And then there are others, the quiet thieves. The ones who smile, nod, and listen, all while taking notes. You think you're sharing a brilliant idea in confidence. But before you know it, someone else is running with your vision. They didn't build it. They didn't dream it, but they were there when you opened your mouth. And that was enough. That's why silence isn't just strategy, it's protection. Your ideas, your goals, your progress, they deserve to be nurtured in private until they're strong enough to stand on their own. Because when people don't know what you're building, they can't sabotage it, they can't imitate it, and they can't take credit for it. So keep moving in silence. Let your actions speak volumes. Because in a world full of noise, those who master silence will always rise above. And as we turn the page, let's look even deeper into what happens when your silence reveals who truly values you, and who only pretended to. Because silence is not absence. It's presence, refined, deliberate, and deeply grounded in self-respect. Silence doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've started caring more, for your peace, for your clarity, for your emotional well-being. You've decided that not every battle is worth fighting out loud. Not every victory needs a crowd. And not every step forward needs a witness. It takes strength to be quiet in a world that rewards noise. It takes confidence to believe in your own vision even when no one else sees it yet. And it takes wisdom to know that the loudest path isn't always the most effective. Sometimes it's the quiet path that leads to the greatest transformation. So let him talk, let them guess, let him assume. While they're busy speculating, you'll be busy building. Let them wonder why you're so quiet, because one day your results will speak so loudly they won't need to ask anymore. And now, let's continue by uncovering how your silence becomes the mirror in which people's true intentions are revealed, clearly, undeniably, and without you having to say a single word. My friend, if you've ever felt overlooked, if you've ever given too much without receiving what you deserve, then remember this: your worth is not defined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to protect yourself. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to prove yourself to be seen. And you certainly don't need anyone's permission to live in alignment with who you truly are. Learn to embrace silence, not as retreat, but as a bold declaration of someone who knows their value. Because sometimes, what sets you apart isn't what you say out loud, but what you choose to keep sacred. If today's message spoke to your heart, if you're on a journey to reclaim your worth, your peace, and your voice, then I invite you to walk this path with me. Hit the subscribe button to join the Dr. G_check_ official Journey Success channel, where we grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded, one quiet, powerful step at a time. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be respected. And on this journey, you are never alone.